Guys, I understand that the past couple of months in MMA have been pretty crazy. Okay, there's been some serious upsets. Um, and, you know, there's a reason why I called my channel MMA Vibes. That's because I understand something, okay? I understand that when it comes to making predictions, it's literally based on vibes, okay? I don't care how technical you are, how much experience you have, how logical you are, how much of a MMA mathematician wizard you think you are. At the end of the day, it's all based on a feeling, and then the logic comes after. Okay, so not to brag or anything, but I think I'm pretty good at this shit. Okay, I predicted that Carlos Ulberg was going to beat Yuri Prohaska. I didn't make a video about it, and I was kicking myself for not doing that. Okay, so when I predicted or guessed that Sean Strickland was going to beat Hamza Chimaev, that was the birth of my channel. Okay, I had to get that out because I was kicking myself for not recording or starting my channel when when the Ulberg and Yuri Prohaska fight happened, and of course I predicted the gun was gonna beat Alex Pereira. So I'm gonna prop myself up a little bit here. Okay, now that doesn't take away from the reality that you know this shit is still based on feels and vibes. Okay, now I'm starting to notice that MMA fans are starting to accept that. And I think a big reason why MMA fans are starting to accept that this shit is literally all based on vibes. You don't actually know what's going to happen in a fight. Okay. And I think a big reason for that was the Topuria fight. Okay. Seeing him get absolutely annihilated by Justin Gaethje made everybody go, wait a second, we don't actually know anything, you know, and I'm very happy that happened because now if I make a video making a prediction and it looks crazy, it's not gonna come off as crazy because now we all understand that um, just because it sounds logical don't mean you're right. Okay. That being said, I'm starting to notice people getting a little lost in the sauce based on what's been happening this past couple of months, based on all the upsets that we've seen. There are people out here that are literally picking Conor McGregor to beat Max Holloway at UFC 329. Okay. And I'm here to tell you that that is not gonna happen. Okay. I know there's a bunch of Conor McGregor fanboys out there who are hoping, wishing, praying that, their idol makes a comeback and gets a spectacular knockout. But I'm here to ruin the party for you, and I'm going to give you 4 reasons why that is not going to be the case. Okay? So, let's jump into reason number one. Reason number one is his style. Okay? Before I jump into his specific style, I just have to say this. When it comes to fighters taking long layoffs, right? The only type of fighter that can take a long layoff and then come back and still be dominant, in my opinion, is a grappler. Okay? So somebody with strong wrestling, strong jiu-jitsu, those kinds of fighters can go away for a long time and they can come back and they can still out grapple somebody that's not as good at grappling. Okay. You also notice that a lot of older fighters, right? Most fighters that have longevity, you mostly notice this at the higher weight classes. You notice as they're getting older, they start relying more and more on their grappling, okay, and a little less on the striking, and there's a reason for that. Okay, we won't jump too much into that, but is Conor McGregor a grappler or is he a striker? I want you to think about that for a second. Okay, but just to further make my point, I'll give you an example. Okay, the most obvious one, Jon Jones. Okay, so we all saw him. He went away, came back. This was against Gunn. So last time when he fought Gunn, the reason why he was able to easily beat Gunn was because he was far superior in his wrestling and his jiu-jitsu. Okay, his grappling is just miles ahead of Gunn. Okay, do you really believe he was gonna be able to outstrike Gunn for 5 rounds? I'll let you think about that. Um, but all in all, strikers generally don't age as well as grapplers do in MMA. Okay, um, so that's the first thing that I want you to wrap your head around. Okay, um, now in terms of Conor's specific style, right? There is a big difference between karate Conor and boxing Conor. Okay, after the Mayweather fight, we noticed Conor started starting to rely a little more on his boxing, okay, and a little less on his karate style movements, okay. So he went from being fluid, bouncing in and out, throwing kicks, spinning kicks, bicycle kicks, all that type of stuff, to primarily stalking his opponents. Okay, so if you watch his past couple of fights, post the Mayweather fight, it's primarily boxing, you know. And if you look at the first fight between Conor and Max, the reason why that fight was such a problem for Max was because of that karate style of Conor. Okay, there's a way to beat Max Holloway. Okay, um, and usually it comes down to disrupting his rhythm. Okay, so Max generally builds up into fights, and the type of style that stops that in his tracks is usually a style that disrupts his momentum, you know, and that's how Conor was able to beat him the first time, because he was using that side kick to the knee, and he was using that switch kick coming up top, or the little bicycle kick, whatever you want to call it. And on top of that, he mixed in the grappling. Okay, so if you look at the way Max has lost, is being primarily to people that disrupt his rhythm, right? So obviously Conor, when they fought Volk, okay? So the way that fighters generally disrupt Max is by using their kicks, um, using grappling, um, or matching his speed. Okay, so matching his speed while also presenting more power than him. Okay, you really saw Volkanovski pull off all 3 ways to beat Max Holloway all 3 times. Okay, so the first time he utilized the kicks. Okay, so Volk was utilizing his kicking game, through a shitload of leg kicks. Max made a great adjustment in the second fight, but Volk utilized the grappling. And then in the third fight, Volk was just so much faster than Max. Okay, and then we look at the fight he lost to Topuria. Everybody makes this big thing about Topuria's boxing, and while yes, he has great boxing, he has great power, he doesn't have a lot of tools, right? So when I watched that fight, I actually believed Max was outboxing Topuria until Topuria started utilizing the heavy leg kicks. Okay, so Topuria has some nasty leg kicks, and I believe those are the key reasons why his boxing is so lethal. He immobilizes people. Okay, he immobilized Max Holloway, and that's why I was able to catch him. Prior to that, Max was outboxing Topuria. Okay, rewatch the fight and come back and tell me that he wasn't. Okay. Okay. So now we go. Okay. What about the Charles fight? A lot of people were very disappointed in that fight, being that it was a BMF fight and Charles Oliveira utilized his grappling. I was actually very now. I'm biased. I love Charles Oliveira. He's one of my favorite fighters. So the fact that he got the W, to me, it was a happy day. I don't care. He's still a BMF to me. Okay. And a lot of people were not happy with that performance at all. And the reason for that was because he was grappling. Okay. That's just called being smart. That's how you beat Max Holloway. Okay. So took him down, held him down. Was utilizing jiu-jitsu, trying to set up a choke. Was trying to find a submission. But Max was just too good at defending the subs on the ground. Okay. But ultimately, he lost because he couldn't box with Oliveira. And being that it was a BMF fight, I'm quite certain that Max Holloway came into that fight expecting, a striking match, expecting to box with Oliveira. You know what I'm saying? But, that wasn't the case. Oliveira utilized the grappling. Okay? So now we'll move on to reason number 2 for why Conor is not going to pull this shit off. Okay? Reason number 2 is the leg injury. Okay? I don't know if everybody has amnesia or something, but people seem to forget that this man literally broke his leg in half. Okay? When you have an injury like that, you don't come back the same. Okay? Look at Anderson Silva. He didn't come back the same. Look at Chris Weidman. He did not come back the same. Okay? I was watching the podcast with, Chris Weidman, Jorge Masvidal, and Dustin Poirier. And Weidman, I urge you guys to find this podcast and listen to what he was saying regarding his his leg injury. They were talking about the McGregor versus Holloway fight, and Weidman was saying he was picking Max, and the reason for that was saying like he never recovered from his leg injury. Okay, to this day, that leg still bothers him, and he also talked about the psychological effects that injury had on him. Okay, he talks about how in practice he was throwing kicks, to build his confidence back up. But as soon as he stepped in that cage, he told himself, as soon as I get in there, I'm gonna throw a kick. But once he was in there and reality hit, he could not throw the kick. Okay, psychologically that did something to him, and I believe that that will be the case for Conor as well. Okay, now I'm not saying he's not mentally tough or anything, but if if you're an athlete and you've ever suffered a catastrophic injury, you know what that does to your psyche. Okay, not only that, injuries tend to alter the way you move your body. You're never the same. Okay, so that's reason number 2. I don't think Conor is gonna come back the same due to the leg injury he suffered against Dustin Poirier. Reason number 3 is ego. I believe Conor McGregor still has an ego around his fighting. Okay, now the guy has a tight mouthpiece. Okay, he can make you believe anything. Okay, he can sell water to a fish. Now, listening to him talk, in his interviews, I watched the Helwani interview. it sounds like, you know, he's he sounds like he's in a good place, you know. Um, he sounds like he's a little bit more settled when it comes to his ego around, you know, money, material wealth, and all that stuff. But when it comes to the fighting itself, there's a certain way that fighters speak that gives you a glimpse into their psyche. Okay, um, you can see the difference between confidence, and when I say confidence, I really mean faith. Um, you can also see arrogance. Okay, it looks like confidence, but it's a little difference over confidence, and that's what we all saw that with Topuria. Okay, the guy bringing out a white flower for Justin Gaethje and whatever. The things that fighters fight for are very important. Okay, so Connor's been talking about he's fighting for the love of the game. You know, it's not there's no financial incentive. It's it's simply for the love of the game, and that's cool. And he truly believes that he's better than Max, and he will beat Max, and he will sign him. My issue with that is there's an energy behind what they're fighting for. So, for example, Russian fighters extremely difficult to beat because they're fighting for things that are much bigger. Okay, they're representing a whole country. There's a massive energy behind that. Okay, and the reason why that's important is because it it separates the fighter from their ego. Okay, so one of the reasons why I was able to pick Sean Strickland to beat, Hamza, or even Easy. That's another one that I wish I had made a video about because I kind of did see it coming. And the reason for that was because when I was listening to him talk, there's a level of acceptance, okay, that comes with fighting for something that's much bigger than you, okay, whether that's for your country or for your family or whatever. When you go in there, you're not going there thinking, oh, I'm just gonna run through this guy, okay? Usually, fighters that are fighting for something bigger, they usually walk in there with the mindset of whatever happens, happens, and that frees them, okay? It's almost like they let go of control and something else, something more, something higher than them kind of takes the wheel and takes them through the fight. Okay, there's a reason why fighters are extremely religious. Okay, and there's a reason why you hear them, thanking God after fights, thanking Allah and whatnot. Those are fighters that are coming into the game or walking into the cage with a certain level of acceptance and letting go versus fighters that come in um, with a bit of an ego and a pride, right? Those types of fighters, they're looking to make things happen as opposed to just being, okay? As opposed to just being a vessel that's just expressing. I don't want to get too deep, but I think you guys might see where I'm going with that. Now, as for reason number four, I think, I believe Conor is fighting out of his contract, okay? So he's got 2 fights left in the UFC, and I truly believe that he's taking these 2 fights to get out of his contract. I've heard him multiple times talk about how he wants to go and compete in bare knuckle boxing. Okay, so he wants to do the bare knuckle thing, but I don't think UFC is letting him because he's still under contract. Okay, so why is this an issue? I think this is a really good example of what I'm seeing here is Izzy. I think he's doing the same thing. I think he's literally taking fights just to fight out of his contract, and that's an issue because I think these guys already know that their legacy is already cemented. You know what I mean? There's not much like losing can blemish it, but um, They have nothing left to prove. Okay. Um, I think at this point, all they want is to, you know, to be free. And I don't think winning and losing matters as much to them, especially considering that they're already financially set. They've got everything they need. They have no reason to fight. Okay, there's literally no reason for these guys to fight. Okay, and I think the only reason is to get out of their contract. Okay, don't you guys think it's a little weird that Connor's second fight in his contract is scheduled for next year in I think it's in March or something crazy, like a year from now. Okay, I think that's because UFC wants to keep him under contract, and he wants to get out of it. Okay, so I don't think he's coming in with the same hunger that he would be coming in with if he, had true intentions to make his way towards a belt. Now, I don't doubt that Conor wants to win. I don't doubt that if he can pull this off, he wants to, you know, try for the title. Okay, I don't doubt that. But at the same time, I also don't think he cares that much. Okay, I don't think this makes much of a difference to him. And I don't mean to insult him and say that, like he's he's not serious or anything. I believe he is. I do believe that he's coming in to win. Just like Izzy, I don't think Izzy is going in there with the mindset that it is what it is if I lose. I do think they intend to win, but at the same time, I think their motivation is more so set on being free from the UFC, right? And I think winning for them is more about proving something to the UFC, proving their worth to the UFC. Kind of like I think winning is more of a fuck you to the UFC rather than like I'm still the guy type of thing. Well, same thing, but I think you guys understand where I'm coming from. Um, so those are my four reasons for why I think Max Holloway is gonna win the fight, or should I say, for why I think Conor McGregor is gonna lose the fight. Um, if you have any thoughts around that, if you have your pick, if you're picking Conor, picking Max, you can leave a comment in the comment section. Like, subscribe. Peace. I'll catch you on the next one.